Evening all.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, Faith. Mr. Campbell, how are you, sir? Mayor?
Hi, I'm now one of those Zoom calls that looks like I have the fan radiating from my head.
I might have shadows behind mine.
How's everybody?
Did you hear my wife?
No.
Because I'm supposed to let you know that we're messing with her Dexter.
No.
Watch Dexter every night, and this is like after 7 o'clock when we go up, so you're messing with my evening. I use this time.
We appreciate it.
No problem. Here, I'll even let you have mango.
No, don't have to wait, babe. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
I did. How are you?
Living the dream in quarantine.
You're in quarantine?
Well, not literally, but.
Well, I guess I'm one of the lucky ones that go to work every day.
Breaks up your day.
Yes, it does.
So we lost Izzy, it looks like.
I saw him.
He was here. Here he comes again.
I'm really getting used to our green on squares.
I don't think we have assigned squares though for each meeting.
No.
Hey, has Charlie been able to go fishing?
Oh, absolutely.
I was gonna say, that's probably peace in your house, right?
Absolutely. The freezer is full.
Oh, wow.
We're fishing trout.
He goes to the freshwater lakes.
Ah.
He's been getting crabbies, yellow perch, and whatever else. That's all I know about.
I can see a fish fry coming up soon.
Yeah, when this is all over, we need to have a fish fry and invite everybody over.
Now.
That would be fun. We may have to do social distancing at a fish fry.
Janet is not able to hear anybody.
Oh.
Janet has to unmute. She's muted.
Yeah, but even when she's unmuted, I think she's,
Oh.
I wonder if our volume setting in Zoom is set.
Yeah, you can check it under audio settings to make sure you're turned all the way up on both.
I have yet to have a Zoom call that doesn't have some issue somewhere along the way.
Of course. You gotta have an issue.
It's technology.
Are you the common variable, Patrick, or?
I'm probably guilty as charged. We are live on YouTube, just so that everybody is aware, just to keep that part in mind. Janet, are you able to hear us yet? Take that as a no. Looks like she's got technical support next to her though, so.
We're all gonna be better problem solvers after this.
you know, my friend's daughter, who's gonna be 14, was talking about how this experience for their generation is going to help them solve problems in new ways. It's a really positive perspective for somebody, and very astute.
No, I think that the younger generation is definitely embracing this in a way of looking at it as opportunities more so than probably us.
Yeah.
Or should I say, my age group.
I was going to say, Zabi, you are the younger generation, my friend.
All right. Let's not go there. The top row is feeling the age.
Definitely.
I'll speak for myself.
I've been feeling it for a while.
Listen, I learned how to turn a document into a PDF and upload it.
Good for you. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was a 2-day challenge.
Did that help, Janet?
A 2-day challenge that you conquered.
Yep. And I was worrying Jamie in the process.
I would expect no more and no less.
It was technical support.
I'll keep that in mind.
So, Izzy looks like he is back in.
Hopefully,
Okay, you might not have sound, I don't hear anything yet.
I don't know, I just texted Janet and told her to unmute her button and check her volume in the audio of the computer.
Yes,
He's having audio issues. He asked you to go ahead and start the meeting.
I will do. I'd like to call this city council meeting to order for May 12th. Bernie, could you please take roll?
Certainly. Mr. Royo,
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to do the pledge. Are we doing the pledge of allegiance? My apologies.
and we have no flag.
Okay, so please take roll call.
Mr. Royo,
here.
Ms. Bacon,
Here.
Ms. Gregg,
Yeah,
Ms. Diaz. Janet, can you hear us? Okay. Mr. Garcia Molina,
Here.
Mr. Soto,
Here.
and President Smith way down.
Okay, so the only, Barry is on here, he's not on video. I just wanted I believe we have a requirement that all members of council have to be able to hear and be heard by the others. So we need to I think we need to try to figure out these audio issues.
Okay.
They can try calling in with their phone for the audio portion of it, if that helps.
Yeah, and that was probably a good solution.
That worked for me the first time, and then you would just go in and change
I
the phone.
can
numbers
change the
to
phone number to the name, yes.
I can hear it now, by the way. I don't know if anybody else is still having this issue.
all right, Ismael.
Hey, guys.
Turn it back over to you, Ismael.
Janet, can you hear us?
I'm gonna text her and tell her to call.
Patrick, as the administrator, can you go in and reverse all her settings?
All I can do is do an unmute, but I can't, if the issue that she's having is audio on her end, I'm not going to be able to fix that.
Patrick, the call-in number, would that be the same as the public call-in number?
No, it would have been in the invitation, the Zoom invitation, there's a number down below.
Does anybody know what it is, so I can give it to her?
Then, okay.
No. So Janet's saying okay.
Does she have the number?
I don't know. So she's looking it up now.
Yep.
So whether Janet or Council President Smith-Waddell are continuing to have technical problems, you do have a quorum with the other 5 if the 2 of them need to call in. And then we can, before any vote, make sure we do a re-roll call to know who is actually on the meeting and in the technology for the purposes of establishing the quorum and the vote for each if necessary.
Okay, so I believe Councilor Diaz is joined here by phone. Are you able to hear us now, Janet?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
Yes, we hear you.
We are good to go.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody, one council and anybody who may be at home for bearing with. I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting for the council of the city of Lancaster for May 12th, 2020. Forgive me again for dispensing with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll move directly into calling the roll of members. Mr. Harris.
Actually, we just did that.
Oh, great. Good. So we have approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. From the public.
Hello, this is the city council meeting. Hello?
I think we have a call on the line.
Well, there was a call and a hang up.
Okay.
All right. Well, in that case, hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Bacon.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina. Aye. Mr. Zona.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. All right, great. So proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition, we have them. That brings up, we'll have called ahead. Mr. Harris, do we have any, did anybody call in for public comment for this meeting?
We do not have any public comment speakers tonight.
All right, moving right along. Mr. Harris, do we have any reports requested by council?
We do not.
All right. And I believe we also do not have any interim reports of committees of council, so we'll move directly into the legislative agenda, beginning with ordinances for final passage, Administration Bill number 3, 2020.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lancaster establishing policies and regulations related to commercial construction within the City of Lancaster, authorizing the Director of Public Works to modify such policies from time to time, establishing procedures for inspections of construction sites, authorizing code officials of the City of Lancaster to issue orders to compel compliance or stop work for failure to comply, establishing penalties for violations of the ordinance, and providing provisions for the termination of the ordinance. Your time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, great. We have a motion and a second. This ordinance, which we discussed in the previous council meeting, sets out rules and policies for the resuming of contracting work and commercial construction within the city of Lancaster, in line with best practices and guidelines received from the CDC and the Pennsylvania Department of Health about how these things might be conducted safely. We did discuss it a little bit at the previous meeting, but Mr. Campbell, if you wanted to take the opportunity to remind us of anything, now would be the time.
Sure. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We initiated this regulatory legislation with council, recognizing that we wanted to maintain the safety not only of the contractors and workers at any construction site, but of our own staff who are responsible for the inspections, review, and oversight of construction, and the public that may come in contact with any of the construction along the way. We wanted to adopt regulations that were at least as strict as what the state required. We had, in fact, put in practice for our own staff very similar regulations and went a little bit farther than what it requires in terms of ensuring that people would be required to have PPE, sanitary materials, water, the ability to wash their hands, and the ability for any visitor on any construction site to be provided with those kinds of provisions as well. These are not extraordinary provisions. They are provisions that the Department of Public Works has had in place for the past month or so, and we are very happy to be able to propose this legislation for the new work that's coming down the way.
Excellent. Any comments from council?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Campbell, could you please remind us of what penalties and regulations are in place for anyone who doesn't necessarily abide by this?
The penalties include and go up to the ability for us to shut down the site, construction site, if they are not in compliance. But there would be a warning. Incrementally, it would be a warning. It would be a citation. It would be a fine, and then it could be closure, site closure.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia-Molina. Other members of council? Hearing none, I'll now wait a few moments to see if we have any callers from the public.
I did not make the music investment since the last meeting, just so you're all aware.
Shame. All right, in that case, hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. President, I did get an email today from Representative Warfel, and I thought he was going to be calling in with questions. Might want to give it a few more seconds.
Will do. Anything, Mr. Hopkins?
Yep. Hello, this is the city council meeting.
I just have some questions and comments regarding the administration bill number 3/2020 that was just being discussed.
Can you all hear that?
Yes.
Councilors? Okay. Go ahead, sir.
So just a few, I work for a general contractor, I'm working in the city right now. So just reviewing the document, I just wanted to make sure that we're following all protocol. My first question is in regards to paragraph 3.A in Exhibit A. And I was wondering, it appears find first who is notified at the city, and then what symptoms require notification. For example, somebody goes home because they're having a bad allergy outbreak or something along those lines. Would that signify a notice to the city?
Mr. Campbell?
Oh, I did not hear it fully clearly, but I believe what he was asking is, who does one report to if there is an illness, whether it is COVID related or not? And secondly, what are the consequences?
Rather, he asked what symptoms would qualify for notification, if I heard him correctly.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. The entity that would be notified would be either the job site inspector representative from the city or the permitting office of the city of Lancaster. The symptoms that we are looking for are fever of 100.4 or greater. I know these things by heart. Fever of 100.4 or greater, shortness of breath, and a dry cough. The symptoms also would be, so if there is a temperature, the ability to take a temperature at site, that would confirm the fever. If people reported having a fever or having any of the other symptoms, we are looking to see if those symptoms are in place or have been in place for 48 hours before the arrival at the site.
Okay, so 3.A primarily deals with illness as it relates to COVID, and you wouldn't necessarily be looking for notice of somebody that went home because pollen was high and they were having an allergic reaction to the pollen, for example.
That is correct. We would not be looking for symptoms such as an upset stomach or pollen or allergy-related symptoms, unless by chance those symptoms coincided with one of those three: fever, cough, or shortness of breath.
Okay. My next question is in regard to paragraph 3.B. And I was wondering if there were any processes currently in place within the city council for suspending, delaying, or terminating work if there was a positive COVID-19 case on site.
Mr. Campbell, did you hear that?
Yes, and I thought they were asking if there was any provision for council to take action.
Yeah, I think really what he's asking is because we wouldn't take specific action, I don't believe. But the question is really, would the city take a specific action on confirmation of those symptoms or COVID-19 illness? I think here city council has autonomy for the whole city.
Okay, the action that would be taken would be first and foremost for that person to be sent home. The symptoms themselves do not necessarily indicate that it is a COVID positive, and so we would not shut down the site if a person arrived sick. If a person did arrive sick, they would be sent home. Only if the contractor refuses to send that person home would we take extraordinary action to close the site, because at that point it would appear to be a willful action to keep an unsafe site, unsafe person on site, and thereby keep the site unsafe.
So did you hear that?
Yes. What if there is a positive COVID-19 case on site? Just looking at paragraph 3.B, it references that the sole discretion that work can be suspended, delayed, or terminated. So I was just wondering if there was any processes surrounding which one of those three instances would take effect.
So if someone presented on site as COVID positive, that indicates that they had taken a test and came to the site before they had gotten the result of that test and or got the result of the test and chose to come to the site nonetheless. In that case, yes, we would shut the site down. We would issue a stop work order at that moment until that person is gone and the area that person had intervention with would be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized as necessary for the safety of the construction workers themselves, not even so much for the safety of our inspectors. Our inspectors would not necessarily have come to the site, but if a person arrives on the site with a positive, meaning that they knew they were positive and arrived at the site, the intention would be that at that point, the site needs to be shut down.
So, Mr. Campbell, and to dig further into what I think the caller's specific question may be is, if somebody arrives on site with symptoms, and then they are sent home and they're tested, and 2 to 3 days later, they inform their supervisor that they were indeed COVID-19 positive, what is the process from that point?
At that point, that person would have to remain off-site, but the people on-site would be notified that a person would need to stay in compliance with all HIPAA regulations and therefore not indicate what the name or the position of the person was, but that a person had been on site who tested positive. There would be the initiation of contact tracing to find out with whom that person had spent time, and generally the thresholds for the contact tracing are if people were within 6 feet for more than 10 or 15 minutes, and again, within 48 hours of having either been on site or 48 hours of symptoms having first presented themselves. The site would not have to close if a person had been tested and found to be positive 2, 3, 4 days later. But every precaution would still be in place to keep the site as safe as practical, which is to say that the provisions in this regulation, which call for social distancing, application of PPE, the ability to keep the site clean, that people never have more than one person in the cab of a vehicle, etc., all of the things that would help to maintain the safety of the individuals on site, the workers, and any visitors to the site would still maintain. But the site would not be shut down because 2 or 3 days later a person was found to have tested positive.
Okay, thank you. Sir, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was perfect. I appreciate that. My next question deals with 3.C, indicating that all employees must travel alone in their personal vehicles or company-assigned vehicle by themselves. As I'm sure you're aware, that could create some financial hardship on clients with needing to pay for more downtown parking or parking meters or in parking garages. So I was wondering if there were going to be any provisions made within the city for reduced parking rates or contractors or anything along those lines to assist with that requirement.
If you're asking me to answer, my understanding is that there would not be any such provisions. Just as with many other construction sites, if there are a lot of people coming to the site, one may need to make arrangements for people to park several blocks further away and walk to this site, or to be able to let it be part of the general overhead of doing business. Those are the provisions that would need to be made. The safety of the contractors themselves, the safety of the people on the site, and the safety of the people in the neighborhood is paramount. And in terms of the cost of parking, to provide for that extra additional parking, at least from the position that I take, and I'm not necessarily in charge of the parking part, we would not be making special provisions.
I would just add to that, may I ask who is calling from Morphle? I'd just like to know.
Yeah, this is Guy Kingery. I'm a project executive.
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate the detailed questions that you're asking. And have you been in touch with the parking authority to talk to them about options?
No, I have not. I apologize. I started reviewing this legislation this afternoon, so I apologize. I didn't do any further research for that.
No, that's okay. And you should feel free to call back my office if you have any other questions related to that at 291-4701. I would just add that downtown parking meters have not been being enforced since the beginning of this. They are going to restart enforcement not next week, but the following week. So there is time to work through parking issues, and I know that you've already commenced construction at least 2 projects downtown. So you have some time to work through those issues, and I'd be happy to help.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No problem.
I just have one last question, and it's in regards to paragraph J point I believe. And it's in regards to if a issue is presented on site and a stop work order or a spirit notice is issued by the city within 24 hours, and a contractor then responds to that spirit notice possibly the next day. Is there a timeline stipulated for the city to respond to the contractor's response to then open the job back up?
In the document, there is not a time frame indicated. It does require that the corrective plan must be submitted and approved by the city. Because we have recently reopened our permitting office, there are people there Monday through Thursday to be able to review any corrective plan that is submitted. And the aspects of the corrective plan are to fulfill the key elements that are described in the legislation. So it would not take long to review that corrective plan. Just for your own sake, one aspect of the corrective plan we're most concerned about is how to ensure that the violation that caused the shutdown order would not occur again.
All right.
I appreciate everything I have.
Oh, yeah, sorry. And thank you, sir, for calling in. I appreciate the thorough questions. And have a good night.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Hopkins, did we have any other blinking lights while the call was going on?
Not while the call was going on, no.
Well, I'll give it a few more seconds and then.
While we're waiting, I just want to acknowledge the incredible level of mastery that Mr. Campbell, as the Director of Public Works, has gleaned over this number of weeks about all things related to construction and COVID. We have benefited from your expertise and appreciate the amount of time, which has been considerable, to protecting the safety of our folks, city staff, as well as the many construction projects around the city. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Hearing no additional comments from the public, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Bacon.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz. Ms. Diaz.
All right, aye.
Mr. Garcia Medina. Aye. Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith-Rayo.
Aye. Thank you very much, all. All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda of resolutions, Administration Resolution Number 23, 2020. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster requesting a Greenways Trails and Recreation Program grant of $250,000
from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for the Water Street Bicycle and Pedestrian Off-Road Trail.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Council comments? Oh, I apologize. I skipped right to council comments. Mr. Campbell, would you like to contextualize a little bit? My apologies.
Yes. As many of you know, we are in the process of developing what I'm hoping is a very extensive bicycle trailway throughout the city of Lancaster and connecting to the Lancaster Township and the surrounding county. The Water Street line from I believe it's from Chestnut North is already funded and under design. The Water Street south of Chestnut down towards Culleton Park is the section that is what we call phase 2, or the south wing of this project. We are going for additional grant money to be able to do some enhancements and better address issues of signage, wayfinding, and some of the historic aspects of Water Street, which many of you may know was one of the conduct streams that cuts north-south through the city. And we want to be able to better appreciate, in a historical context, Water Street as a bikeway in the pedestrian right-of-way of the city of Lancaster.
Thank you. Council comments?
Yeah, Mr. Campbell, have the designs been finalized? And if so, where can the public find what this would look like?
No, the designs have not been finalized as yet. This is for the south, for the north, it is underway. But for the south, this would be part of the initiation of the southern end of the Water Street design.
Got it, thank you.
Any other council comments? Okay, we will now enter the waiting phase, where we wait to engage comments from the public at large.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Excellent proper sneezing procedure, Mayor.
You're leading by example.
Allergies, ugh.
I should have anticipated the sneeze and muted her while she was turning, but.
So here's a very important question while we're waiting. And maybe this is one for Mr. Handwerger. Since the Zoom recording is indeed part of the public record now, are the reactions, like the clap reaction and the thumbs up reaction, are those also considered parts of the public record? And would they have to be transcribed if somebody requested transcription?
No.
Thank you for that succinct answer, Mr. Handwerger.
No hesitation there, huh?
No hesitation.
They are recorded. They are recorded on the YouTube stream, so and available for public view.
Although I do think it would be fun to see Mr. Harris try to incorporate those into the official minutes.
I had no plans to incorporate this.
We have received no calls.
Excellent. Well, fine, either way. Mr. Harris.
Mr. O'Brien.
Aye.
Ms. Bacon.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia-Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith-Wade.
Aye. All right, moving right along, Administration Resolution number 24, 2020.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the City Administration to join in, execute, and proceed with a joint petition
to stay the 2020 upset tax sale pursuant to 72 PS 5860.601C, prepared by the Lancaster County Tax Claim Bureau.
Okay.
Second.
Excellent. Great. No one knows what that means. Councilman Bacon.
I do. Or at least I'm going to try my best, and if I don't do this justice, Patrick, you can fill in the rest. So essentially, the Lancaster County Tax Claim Bureau has prepared a petition that they'd like the city and other municipalities in Lancaster County to join with them for the purpose of suspending the judicial tax sales for 2020. So this is the sales for delinquent taxes on properties. Obviously, this is an extraordinary time. There's a lot of economic hardship as well as other types of hardship. And so we believe that it's in the best interest of everyone to join in this petition and to not hold these sales until sometime either later in 2020 or not at all this year. Mr. Hopkins.
Sure. So that was a good rundown of the issue. So we were approached by the county treasurer last week, I believe it was, to address this issue. The county treasurer, while the treasurer's office manages the upset sale process, it's actually done through a court order by the one of the common pleas judges. So this petition would go to the court for the court to approve. And the concept here essentially really is to push the 2020 sale off into 2021 and likely just not have a 2020 sale. The sale is typically scheduled in September. As of last week, there were, I think, 1,600 and some properties that were countywide that were on the list. About 400 of those were properties within the city. And it was told that those numbers reduce very rapidly the closer we get to the judicial upset sale. Judicial upset sale is sort of the first line of the more stringent collection process for delinquent taxes. And it subjects a property to sale for not just the outstanding taxes, but all mortgages and all other liens. So typically, properties go through that upset sale process, and then if the taxes still aren't paid another year later, then they're subject to the judicial sale, and that is paying the back taxes only. So this would really delay collection process by the County Tax Claim Bureau probably for almost a full year.
Great, Mr. Hopkins. Great, Councilor Bakay. Thank you for introducing that. It sounds, speak for everybody, like a necessary measure to give homeowners more time to sort out their affairs in a difficult financial situation for all of us. Any other council comments? Okay, and it will take a moment to hear from the public. Pardon me for a moment, I'm going to turn the light on in this room. It's all light, so I often forget that the light is off until it starts to become evening. There we go. All right, hearing none, Mr. Hickhurst.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Bacon.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia-Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waydell.
Aye. All right, That moves us to our second public comment period, reserved for items not on the agenda, but open to the public at large. So we'll take some time and wait, see if anybody calls in to make a general public comment.
Council President, while we're waiting, I would just add that in lieu of my more traditional report to council, I'm happy to answer questions like we did last time. So if anybody has questions, you can be thinking of them now.
All right. I have 80 seconds there. And Mr. Hopkins, do we have any phone calls or blinking lights?
No, we do not.
All right. Then we will move directly to the report of the mayor or the Q&A session as the mayor has deemed it. Councilors, do you have any questions for Mayor Swaratu this evening?
You're doing a good job. Keep up the good work. Yes.
Thank you.
Who are we talking to?
To you, Councilor Craig.
All right. There was a couple of things going on here. I do request that, Mayor, if you could, at some point with the Live at 5 sessions,
Yeah.
address the cosmetology industry, the barber industry, the spas, nail salons specifically.
Okay.
Let's talk about because I feel at this point we haven't had any real specifics other than what the governor has been issuing to us.
Okay.
And I think a few people are getting a little antsy, but I think they need to, hear some of the real cold hard facts so that they stay the course.
Okay, very good. I may follow up with you about those issues directly, Faith, Councilor Craig. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Just a question, Mayor, about the contact tracing efforts. Can you just kind of give us an idea of where we are in that process?
Sure. They have started 2 weeks ago, and thus far, those efforts have been conducted by the LGH staff and residents in particular as part of the family medicine practice. Last Wednesday, our staff completed with LGH staff training with a CDC policy analyst on contact tracing. Draft protocols, draft scripts have been written, and those scripts were put through the paces yesterday and today, and tomorrow our staff will begin contact tracing efforts as well. And we did have a little bit of a hiccup with the SharePoint site that wasn't populating properly, but that all has been resolved, and we're full steam ahead. We're also learning a lot about internal contact tracing as well, and that's a lot of the expertise that Mr. Campbell shared earlier. We have had one staff member test positive for COVID thus far, and really very appreciative of the quick response and the the staff has just been really terrific in just managing a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions and concerns because work is, coming to work is solace at this point. As you heard earlier, we are going to be restarting the downtown parking enforcement in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be working with Mr. Campbell in the coming weeks. We need to make a decision about street sweeping. It's not going well. Some people are moving their cars and many others are not. So yeah, it's just been now months since we properly clean the streets, and there are other health concerns that we're now dealing with. And I would also just ask each of you, if you have networks that could help us, we do have a vacancy for a health officer to assist Kim Whistler. That position's been posted on the Lancaster City website. And if you have anybody or can help us push that job announcement out, that would be hugely helpful. We have had a reduction in the volume of work in one way because of the business closures, but clearly an increase in the volume of work in another way as a result of COVID. And we're also gearing up for mosquito season and a bunch of other things.
Mayor, what are the qualifications for someone for that position? For anyone that would be listening?
Yes, I wish I could tell you off the top of my head, but I would need to refer them to the City of Lancaster. And if you go to the City of Lancaster, if you Google City of Lancaster PA jobs, you can click right to it. There's also an equipment operator that we're trying to hire for as well. And these positions are critical in terms of infrastructure and maintaining health. So we're continuing to move forward. There are a handful of positions that we are continuing to push to fill those vacancies because of impending retirements or staff changes.
Thank you.
Okay, please don't hesitate to be in touch with me at any time. This has created a surreal working experience. Our team is definitely pivoted from full-on crisis mode to trying to get back to the work at hand. We really appreciate your support and efforts, as you've seen in tonight's agenda, back to the work at hand in some ways, like talking about Water Street, which is just so refreshing. We are also continuing to push forward planning efforts with Yule Plaza, and we'll be able to share more about those as they are become more finalized in terms of a timeline. And all of our construction projects are a go. If you haven't driven down King Street, West King Street, there was a fire station there, and now it is gone. It has been completely demolished, and so we're continuing to move forward with those projects, and trying to maintain the core services that everybody relies on us for, and trying to move forward strategic objectives and key priorities in the midst. So I think everybody's happy to get back to some normal, whatever that is.
All right. Any other questions for the mayor? Mayor Soranchi, anything else?
No, thank you very much. Thank you also.
I have a quick question, if I may.
Please.
In reference to the 95 million that the county received, have they or have you been able to discuss the possibility of helping the city with some of that funding? Since I've heard that at this point they don't know what they're going to do with it.
No, well, let me say that they are making decisions about that tomorrow, how to allocate that $95 million at their meeting. They have a framework for how those dollars would be allocated. We did participate in a call earlier this week to give specific guidance to municipalities about what costs could be covered. It does relate to COVID-specific costs, and so the city does have COVID-specific costs that they would submit to the county for potential reimbursement per the guidelines that they have provided thus far. It would not provide any kind of relief for any revenue shortfalls that the city is currently experiencing and anticipates experiencing through the duration of 2020 and 2021.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'll proceed with my report, and I'll try to keep it pretty brief. I think there's really 3 items. First, councilors, you may have received in your emails, for me, they got pushed to the other or spam filters, but you may have received in your emails some rather alarming emails about with sort of bold and non-specific declarations of constitutional rights. It's unclear to me whether those emails were actually sent by the people at the given addresses or by somebody spoofing their email addresses. But I do, first of all, want to let you know not to be and address them specifically, and I will address them here. They make a number of claims about not being forced to wear a mask or endure the quarantine or lockdown around the idea that these things constitute violations of their constitutional rights. There's a legitimate legal question there, and it has been answered by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is that Governor Wolf's lockdown order remains in effect and is valid law for the time being. From the Pennsylvania Supreme, one can appeal to the United States Supreme Court, who was petitioned to take on the matter and decided not to, leaving Governor Wolf's order in place. The highest judicial bodies in the United States of America have given this order their go-ahead for the time being. And so the claim that these requirements are unconstitutional, while I cannot verify with any certitude that these are incorrect, the best legal minds in the nation, and more importantly, the highest elected legal minds in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in the United States have decided that these orders are in fact constitutional. So we're going to proceed as though they are, because that's how we do things in the United States of America. Which brings me to a second point that is sort of related to that, which is this sort of broad tension that we're all feeling as people hurry to sort of reopen in the county and the city of Lancaster. And I'll say to them and to all of you that I understand this. Everybody wants to get back to business. Everybody wants to work. And those people you need, those low-income workers who are not working or not deemed essential workers, and who frankly have not necessarily been provided for by government programs in the way that was originally intended, just given all the hiccups that have happened there. They have a very reasonable desire to get back to getting a regular paycheck. And the fact of the matter is simply this, and the mayor addressed this, not as a partisan question. We do not yet in Lancaster County have the supplies or capacity necessary to allow our community to do that safely. We do not in fact have the supplies or capacity that the county commissioners and other county Republicans specifically mentioned as important parts of their plan to reopen. We simply do not have them. And since we share an acknowledgement that they are necessary, the only reasonable conclusion is we need to move with all necessary haste to get them before we indeed rush to throw the doors open. And I want you all counselors to be empowered to say that what you're being presented with is a false dichotomy. It's not that there's one group of people who want to reopen the economy and one who do not, but rather that our collective focus should be on doing it right and doing it in a way that, God forbid, doesn't make anybody worse off. So say, for example, should a business reopen and then due to the lack of capacity, necessary testing and contact tracing be the site of a resurgent COVID-19 outbreak, it's possible that that business could never recover or reopen again. And that's really what we're talking about on a community-wide scale. So I do want to say to people, we hear what you're saying, but it's important that we get these things right before we proceed sort of blindly and haphazardly to pretending that everything is in fact back to normal. I'm my third item, so I won't belabor anybody while I wait and try to recall it, but I believe it was probably embedded in one of those two. Oh, no, I just recalled it. Want to thank those counselors who have drafted letters to higher elected officials advocating for the needs of the city. If you have not yet submitted a draft to Bernie, he's happy to receive them and happy to help you write them. We'll be sending those out in the next couple of days here because just like everybody else, our needs are urgent, and the sooner we have more support, the sooner we can more effectively support our residents. That's my story.
And he's freezing to it.
Okay.
Oh, we lost 7 people.
I think Izzy is frozen now.
I think Izzy's the only one that's frozen.
I'm sorry. I'm having a little bit of audio trouble again. Did I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have a good evening, everybody. We are adjourned.
Take care and God bless you all.
Thanks, Izzy.